Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It's the Produce Moms podcast, and what a joy it is to bring on today's guest. We are so excited. I also am thrilled because our guest today is a huge fan and follower, subscriber, avid listener to the Produce Moms podcast, someone that I've known for several years from the grocery retail industry. And he often will reach out to me with just some feedback and words of encouragement as it relates to this weekly publication and podcast that we're doing. So it is a great joy to welcome Eric Halvorson today to the Produce Moms podcast. Eric is the head of communication and public affairs for Kroger Central Division. Today, we're going to talk all about some of that intersection between the grower community, strategic relationships, and how does grocery industry show up for all of these stakeholders. And you know, at Kroger, one of the guiding lights is feeding the human spirit. And Eric and I have shared so much dialogue on what that means as it relates to the desk he holds and the responsibilities he has as a Kroger spokesperson, as well as someone who's really involved with their communication and public affairs. Eric, welcome to the show. We are so glad you're here.
Thank you. It's a joy for me to be here too, because I'm a fan of yours. I've admired what you've done for so long, and you're not just making this up. I really am a fan of the show. I listen every time it's out there. I learn something every week, and I'm just so impressed by the knowledge you bring to the industry and what your listeners gain from this podcast every week. So for me to be here with you is just a treat.
Oh, Eric, thank you so much. And I agree with you. I think that the Produce Moms podcast has really been, it's been my number one source of continuing education, even as it relates to staying sharp and informed with what's happening and all the many stakeholders and challenges and opportunities that exist from that seed to smile journey, what it takes to actually get not just fresh produce, but all of our food on the table. There are so many hands in on it, and Kroger is uniquely positioned as one of America's largest and most trusted grocery retailers. So let's really dive in. Let's first give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to our guests, tell us a little bit more about your role, and then we'll go into some of the dialogue that you and I discussed pre-show.
It's hard for me to believe that this summer I will have been at Kroger for 10 years. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. It just flies by. And when I was, I'll say, just a customer, before I worked here, I would go to the grocery store, food just magically appeared. I didn't give any thought to how much work it actually takes to get food on the shelves and how many people it takes to transport the food, to order the food, to stock the shelves, to do all the various steps from the farm to the shelf and then ultimately to the table. It's stunning how complex it is and how fast it moves. It is such a challenging industry, and to be on the inside and see how it's really done is just amazing to me. I continue to learn. I know you've seen it from your career before Produce Moms, so you have a lot of inside information. And that's one of the reasons I value your show, because so many people know you, and you can bring people into the program, bring people into the studio who are enlightening your audience as to all the different steps between, as you said, seed to smile. I love that line. It's just, that's the complication. It's not as easy as it looks, is the short answer, running a grocery store.
Oh my gosh, no. And I think also when you are in the business of selling food, I think that you instinctively become passionate about hunger relief. And I know that is something, Eric, that has become an authentic passion of yours. Why don't we start today's conversation talking about Kroger's longstanding commitment to hunger relief, and maybe perhaps share some stories about how your efforts in the Central Division fit into Kroger's overall mission and values today.
The hunger relief program that we've had since 2017 is called Zero Hunger, Zero Waste, trying to eliminate hunger in the communities we serve. Ambitious goal. We said from the very beginning, this is not something we can achieve on our own. It would take partners. So our partners are food banks, our food pantries. It's people like you who help tell the story with some of the guests that you have and with the knowledge you've shared with people all over the country as you go to Washington, D.C. and talk to people. So reaching the community and making them more aware of the extent of hunger has been a big part of what we do. The Kroger has always been involved in hunger relief to a degree. I think you could go back to the very beginning of Kroger, and our founder, Barney Kroger, was giving bread to people in need. But it has become so much more than that. And even within the last few years, I would say even more than that, because the whole country, I think, maybe inspired by COVID and some of the challenges people ran into during the pandemic, people started to see how serious the hunger problem is in our communities and how desperate we are for relief. So Kroger has been building into, just in our division last year, through our food rescue program, we donated 3.4 million meals. Wow. To people in need around our division. So that's really only part of what we do, but putting food on the table. When you go into a Kroger grocery store and see food on the shelves, you can tell there's not a food shortage issue. It's not reaching the people who need it, and that's what we're trying to do through Zero Hunger, Zero Waste.
Such a noble mission for Kroger. And of course, at the same time, like, we don't want to lose sight on the fact that the grocery retail industry is highly competitive. And in order to be able to give back, I always remind people that part of sustainability is always profit. People, planet, profit. That's all part of the formula in order for corporations like Kroger or any of us to be able to give back to the causes that are important to us and that serve as our mission. We'll keep that concept top of mind as we carry on today's conversation. But Eric, something you said that I really want to underscore a little bit, mentioning COVID, and we've talked about it here on this show. So there's a chance that as one of our valued listeners, you've even heard me talk about this. But I think that during COVID was one of the first times where America as a whole was able to really understand and appreciate grocery retailers as more than just a place to buy food. They really became hubs of our community during those uncertain times and that highly disruptive time. As we think about your specific job at Kroger, what you're doing as part of the team with communications and public affairs, anything you'd like to share more on that, just how you view and position Kroger in your day-to-day as really a hub for the entire community?
It's an interesting question, because when I started, my brain would lock in on people saying, my Kroger, not just Kroger, it's my Kroger. People take it very personally. And it was also, as I was starting, we were doing the rollout of, at that time it was Click List, now Kroger Pickup. People were getting used to the idea of curbside shopping. So we were giving people more of an option. And that's been developing also as different ways for people to shop. What's the most convenient? What makes them feel best? What makes them feel most secure? And the idea of Kroger as a hub for the community, people come to us for different requests all the time. And as we've focused on hunger, I can say, yes, we can support the local food bank. I can support the food pantry. It puts me in a challenging position sometimes if I have to say, we're not able to do this because our mission is hunger relief. Yeah. So we get so many people who do rely on Kroger for a lot of different things. And it's inspiring and challenging at the same time, just to try to keep up with what the community wants and needs.
And there's no shortage of people looking for, especially the big businesses or the places that they feel personally connected to, like my Kroger. There's no shortage of folks wanting support for various noble causes and missions. So it's great that you guys have honed in on the Zero Hunger, Zero Waste, and that can serve as the guiding principle for a lot of this outreach. Also, something that we should talk about is how you are focused on the Central Division, and Kroger takes it seriously where, yes, it's this big corporation and national brand, but there are localized efforts and offices where very critical initiatives like communications, public affairs, community outreach is taking place at a more localized level. So let's talk about that, even just help people understand the divisional structure and why that's critical, especially as it relates to execution on missions such as Zero Hunger, Zero Waste.
Our situation in Kroger Central Division, we cover 4 states. So we're in Defiance, Ohio, and so Northwest Ohio to Rolla and Troy, Missouri, so Southeast Missouri. And we're a swath across 4 states then. That corner of Ohio, across Indiana, Illinois, and then southeastern Missouri. So it's a good sized space that we cover with 126 stores. And then you can multiply the number of stores represented by Kroger in a number of different divisions across. When you put it all together, Kroger exists in about 2/3 of the United States, serving food banks and serving different needs. But what I do in central Indiana may be a little bit different than what we see in our partner stores in Colorado, because they may have a different population base, so they may channel some things differently than we do here. So we try to do what we can to represent the communities that we serve, doing the best we can to reach the most people and put the most food on the table for the people in need.
Yep. And Zero Hunger, Zero Waste is that connector, that mission that guides it all.
That drives everything for everyone, yes. And we've, over the course of time since we started it, I told you for our division last year, 3.4 million meals across the company. For the years that we've been doing it, we're into the billions of meals now that have been provided, meals and funds that have been raised to support the food banks.
Hunger is a tough topic. It's something that is difficult to really wrap our minds around. So many of the people making decisions as it relates to hunger relief are people who have never actually experienced hunger. I would love to know a little bit more from you as it relates to, is this an access issue? Is it an affordability issue? Is it multi-pronged? Any insights that you could share, Eric, as to how hunger shows up and the reality of hunger, so to say?
Yeah, I'd say all of the above on that. It's an access issue. It's an affordability issue. I've heard a story from one of our food banks in northern Indiana where a mom suddenly became a single mom because her husband decided he was going to leave. She had kids she had to take care of. She couldn't have taken care of them without the local food bank to help tide her over until she found a way to support herself. And those stories happen over and over. We have a food drive that we do every spring, and one of the local police departments that we work with makes sure that the food drive we do with them supports their local senior center, because they worry about seniors having enough, not having to choose between food and medicine. And so many times hunger, as I've learned, hunger exists in ways that most people don't understand. You don't necessarily realize that it's someone just down the street who might be struggling. I remember being at a food bank doing one of those meal packing, putting food into trunks, and there were a lot of very nice cars in there. And somebody said, how come they're here? There are people who are in line now who never expected to lose a job. They never expected to be food bank clients, but it happens. And that registers with me also, just knowing that there are people out there who struggle and are in situations that are not of their own doing.
Yeah. like as you're talking, I'm hearing like it's not necessarily just a generational issue. It can be an acute issue. It obviously knows no demographic. It's one of those realities of humanity that can affect so many people, and it does affect so many people, all ages and cultures and demographics and locations. So thanks for sharing that. I think it's always important to just baseline and gather people who around it, especially around topics where I really do think that people say things like, oh, hunger relief, zero hunger, zero waste, and they really don't necessarily understand the breadth of humanity that this affects. So I'm glad that, thank you for sharing that. So let's talk now, Eric, a little bit more about specific programming that you have implemented or things that are coming in the pipeline, but things that have especially warmed your heart as it relates to your zero hunger, zero waste initiatives. Anything you'd like to spotlight?
Yeah, actually a couple of them. And I have one example here. Got a prop.
Oh my gosh.
This little guy.
Yeah.
For Earth Month, we are raising money for the World Wildlife Fund for people who are willing to round up at the register. We can help take care of the planet, which is the zero waste side of zero hunger, zero waste, trying to make sure we're doing more, less food going into landfills, less waste going up into the atmosphere. So this little guy is part of that as people round up. We just did, at the beginning of the month, did a program with Hatch for Hunger. They put eggs into food banks. Protein is a huge issue. People don't get enough protein often in food banks. That's why they frequently are looking for eggs or peanut butter, something like that. We had a program from roughly the all-star break of the NBA working with the Indiana Pacers, saying we and an egg company called MPS Eggs in northern Indiana donating 3 cases of eggs for every Pacers three-pointer. So we are going to end the season with 100,000 eggs being donated to Hatch for Hunger. And I'll have to show you the video because you'll see cartons covering the floor of Gainbridge Fieldhouse to represent each of those eggs. So what we're looking at is 8,100 cartons of eggs roughly, and each carton then becomes 8,100 families who benefit from what we did. And that's one of my current favorites. I could go on and on. We have a program in Decatur, Illinois called Prescription Produce. We help a local clinic with a garden they have in their property where they grow their own vegetables and then give them to the patients at the clinic because that helps them get nutritious, fresh, locally grown food. So it's event after event like that, which means a lot to me.
I bet. And we're going to come back to that prescription initiative. Obviously, it's the Produce Moms podcast. We're going to emphasize that. But I do want to bring up one thing that really warmed my heart, Eric, the last time you and I met, which it's been a few months ago, but the birthday cake initiative that you spearheaded. Let's talk about that because I also think that it's really important as we think about Kroger's commitment to feeding the human spirit. And there are lots of ways that shows up. So share a little bit more about the birthday cake.
The Children's Museum of Indianapolis was celebrating its birthday, 100th birthday, and we had an opportunity to help them celebrate, but they didn't want it to be focused just on the museum. They wanted it to be sharing the celebration with local children, again, children in need, so using the local Gleaners Food Bank as the connection between us and the birthday party. And we created boxes of food. It was, I'm trying to remember the name of what they call it, but basically it was cans of pop mixing with cake mix. And so we would have cans, cake mix, and frosting going into a box. And then we did hundreds of these boxes that went to kids in need. And we even had one gentleman in Chicago who runs a party supply shop, and he donated the candles because he was just that intrigued by what we were doing. And again, it wasn't traditional hunger relief. We're doing cakes. But as you noted, feeding the human spirit, making kids happy. They can't spend their whole lives in turmoil or worry. They should have the same opportunity to celebrate and have fun that all kids do. And I think that was our motivation with those birthday cake kits, just trying to say, here, have some fun, have a party like every other kid.
I loved it. It was one of my favorites for sure. All right, so let's talk about those produce prescriptions and that outreach. Can you share a little bit more detail about it? This is obviously something that is a super hot topic and of top interest to everyone that tunes into this show. So let's share a little bit more about what you did specifically with that Decatur, Illinois initiative.
Yeah, the local radio station deserves the credit for introducing us to Crossing Healthcare, because they have what has been called the largest single-day food drive in the country. WSOY are the call letters. And we've been part of that for a number of years. And we were looking for something that would be a little different, an innovative way for us to connect with the community and support the food drive. And they said, Crossing Healthcare, you should look into it. And the Crossing Healthcare people told us about prescription produce. And since our investment, they have been able to expand the number of acres they have outside their clinic. So they're growing all kinds of different fruits and vegetables with the idea of adding to the nutrition of the people who come to the clinic, because they know that some of these, I remember hearing on the radio years ago that there are kids in, say, New York City who don't know what a tomato is because they've never seen one. They've never grown one. So the idea behind prescription produce is putting these products in the hands of the people who need them, and sometimes teaching them how to cook these foods just so they could make sure they get the benefit of the vitamins, minerals, all the nutrients that go with it. And we have something similar to that through Community Harvest Food Bank in northern Indiana. They have done a lot of their own growing of produce also, which is then provided through the food bank. So those locally grown produce options, knowing people benefit instantly from the kind of foods that mean so much to you, has been an inspiration to me.
I love that. And something too, the food bank infrastructure is not always conducive to fresh fruits and vegetables. Cold storage is limited. The thought that anything that is arduous to prep, there's concerns like, does the recipient have the proper access or kitchen tools to prep these items? There's fruits and vegetables that exist, but it's usually the same similar commodities like pears, apples, potatoes, oranges. But I'd love any of your feedback or experience, Eric, as it relates to encountering fresh produce at food banks. And if you feel, as society has moved forward, embracing food as medicine initiatives and MAHA initiatives, what are you seeing a spike in fresh produce availability at food banks or anything else along those lines?
I'm going to maybe go out on a limb a little bit and say they never get enough produce. I was talking to a food bank director a couple days ago, and she said, yes, we do get it, fresh produce, but they could always use more. Sure. And it's fine to have the shelf-stable foods, peanut butter, canned goods. So they need those things. They can stock those things. The time is not an issue as much for them. I think they are challenged by, as you noted, can they preserve it? How long can they keep it on the shelf? Right. I think once they get it in their food banks, it generally moves pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So it's just that I don't know that there's enough to go around for the demand. We do have a program which in our stores people can look for, the red bag program, little plastic bags, which are, so maybe there's a bent banana or some of it is not the most visually appealing, but it's still totally nutritious.
No, I've bought it before.
You can get these bags. I've done it, and it's a bargain to buy the produce like that, and it's an easy way for people who may be struggling a little bit but don't know about the red bags could look for those in our stores and wouldn't even have to go through the food bank to find something nutritious and fresh to put on the table.
And it's usually a variety. It's not just, you're not just getting bananas that have bruising or misfiguration. It's usually a variety. So it's a good grab and go. No, I appreciate you sharing that, Eric. This has been a great discussion. I'm really excited about everything that you're doing at Central Division. You know, I believe in you the same way I know you believe in me. So thank you for that.
I do.
I know you do. And I look forward to everything that's to come. I really think that when you have people who are as passionate as you are for the work that they do, the success follows. The impact is inevitable. So with that, I want to thank you for being part of today's show and give you the mic for any closing remarks that you might have, and then saying goodbye to our listeners.
It's such an honor to be here with you. And as I said at the beginning, a treat, just because as I said, I've listened, I learn. There have been times where I thought, how's she going to get a whole segment out of this? And then I listened to the guest. Holy cow, that was fascinating. Yeah, so you have such a network of smart people who are working on problems that mean so much to the community. And I'm just honored to work with Kroger on projects like this. I never imagined that I would be making a difference as we do. The food banks will thank me for what we do, and I say, you're doing the hard work. They're doing the distribution. They're working with people every day. So I really don't take any credit other than just being proud to be part of Kroger as we make the commitment to help people in need, knowing how extensive it is. So I'm grateful to you, Lori, for giving us the opportunity to tell people how they can help. And it might be as simple as the roundup at the register. If you don't mind, one more little plug. The roundup at the register might be, if you have a $12.35 bill, round it up to 13. The extra few cents isn't going to make a big difference to you, but you put all the small change together, it's going to make a big difference in the lives of the people we serve through the food bank. So thank you for the opportunity to be here, Lori, and thank you to everyone who has helped out.
You're so welcome. And Eric, as you were saying all that, I thought, wow, and another real easy call to action. Shopping at Kroger empowers all of this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it has been a true joy. We look forward to having you back on, talk about some of these other initiatives that you have coming up throughout the year. We would love to stay in touch and bring you back on, Eric. So thank you again. And we appreciate all your hard work and certainly applaud Kroger's effort to zero hunger, zero waste.
Thank you. It's a treat, and I'll come back anytime.
Awesome.